Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of In the Spotlight. I'm Mike Kenichi. I'm very excited tonight because I have two of the coaches from the Derby Middle School running program. A lot of the athletes you've seen that have done so well in high school are a result of that middle school program. And it is my honor to introduce two of them, Shelley Sheridan and, of course, Mike Gozzo. And Shelley and Mike, I want to thank you both for coming on today. It's a real honor.
Thanks for having us.
So let's start off right off the bat. I kind of talked to Shelley a little bit about this, Mike, off the air. How gratifying was it for you to see some of your former runners competing in nationals this past spring? That had to be pretty cool.
It was very, very exciting for me to hear that they were going to Oregon to run.
Yeah, and Mike, I mean, so many of these kids that have come out of that program over the years, I mean, they had tremendous seasons. Obviously, Cassie Silkoff. Then, of course, there was, I'm going to botch her last name, but Cassidy, and you could probably say her last name better than me.
Nepasupsak.
Yeah, Nepasupsak. Yep. You know, even Emma Hyder, who's run for a long time, she ran some varsity this year. Just talk about that a little bit.
Talk about when they first started?
Yeah, when they first started, and to see the growth that they've shown in the last few years.
Well, I kept records from the time we started, and I think Emma and Cassie, we picked them up when they were in 4th grade at Bradley, and they started riding the bus over and working out with us. And Cassie, I think she was just born fast.
Yeah.
And, you know, we made her a little faster. I'm still fooling with this camera. I'm trying to get it.
Oh, you're good. I could see you fine. Okay. Yep.
And, you know, once she started consistency with training and running and then going to races, I mean, she progressively got better. And Emma was the queen of running distance. As far as she would always stick to her schedule. We have the middle schoolers at a minimum. We like to see them run 40 miles per month. Emma would exceed that almost every month, running 50 and 60 miles, which, excuse me, isn't a lot for a high schooler, but for a middle schooler, a 50-mile month is a good month.
Right. And let me ask you, I think it's been a good 12 or 13 years since this running program started. Let me ask you, did you ever think in a million years it would take off like it has? Because it's become really popular. You see so many kids when they get to Derby Middle School who probably never ran before. They go out for this running program and end up having great high school careers. So did you ever, in your wildest dreams, think it would turn into what it has?
Not to this level. I did something similar when I worked in a middle school in Virginia for 6 years. We coached runners. But it didn't get this kind of exposure. It didn't get this kind of support from the community.
Right.
But then again, Hampton, Virginia is a huge city compared to Derby.
Right. And Shelley, let me ask you, how long now have you been helping out with the running program?
Yeah. So Gozzo and I started in Derby the same year. So I hopped on, I piggybacked on that program with him then, and became more committed as time went on, then took a step back when I was working in a different position. I just didn't have the time to dedicate to it. And now I'm back, and it's great to be back. I really enjoy it's like a family. It's great to have the group together, and it certainly helps keep me in shape.
Right. Which I was going to ask you that as well. I mean, I'm sure training these kids all the time, you both are able to get your workouts in a lot of times the same days they're running, because I mean, you're there all the time. So that has to have been helpful for you as well.
It sounds so cliche to say, you know, you don't have time to work out, but when you're with the kids, you have to, if you're going to have them do it, you definitely have to walk the walk or run the run in this case. But you can't ask them to go out and do something that you're not willing to do yourself.
Right. It just sets a good example for the kids. And, you know, when I beat these kids, I have something to say about it. Look, I'm 60 years old. There's no excuse letting me beat you. And sometimes it gets them hyped up to run a little harder.
Right. And Mike, let me ask you, when you first started this running program, I mean, how many days a week did you have those kids outdoors practicing? I mean, did it start off like 3 times a week, or was it every day?
It was either 3 or 4. We never practiced on Wednesday because Wednesday was our meeting day. And
Right.
actually, the people that started the program, myself, Shelley, and Mr. Sabula, who's now working at another, he's working in another school system now. We came together after we had a pretty disappointing first cross country season. We were like 0-14. And, you know, I mean, it doesn't get worse than that unless you're 0-15. So 0-14 was pretty bad. And we wanted to, you know, do something to keep these kids in touch with running, or, you know, do something to keep them going until the following year for cross country. Because at that point, our middle school didn't have a track program yet. So we would need to occupy them for 10 months.
Right. And Shelley, let me ask you, how important is it to have yourself and Mike in the school? Because, I mean, by being in that school every day, you're able to talk to more kids about possibly coming out and running. And I also think that having these kids come out for something like this is a way to kind of motivate them for a lot of things, to do better with their academics, to focus, and to teach them responsibility and discipline.
Yeah, I think it's important for us, you know, to go out and get to know kids in different, we're both on the 8th grade team. So having Jen Andrews down on the 6th grade floor is really helpful. And we just go introduce ourselves, and students who have older siblings might already know us, or word of mouth always helps between the kids. But if we're a friendly face in the hallway saying, hey, you want to run? Hey, you want to run? You get a lot of people saying no. And during our track and field season, going out there and introducing myself to these kids and say, hey, do you want to join track and field? And they think running, and they say, I don't want to run. And then we get them in through throwing, and they find that they have some talent there and really enjoy themselves. So it's definitely important to be talking to them and making sure they know who you are and what it's about. And some of them just want to belong to something, and then find out that they do enjoy running or they enjoy throwing. So that's
right.
Nice.
And the thing that's really cool is, again, some of them who may not have had an interest in it, and as time went on, they joined it and they became very good at it. You've talked about some, like, you know, I think of a kid like Brian Jalowick. He was the kid who played baseball for so many years, and then he switched to track. And I mean, he had an outstanding track career. I think he was an excellent jab thrower, if I remember correctly. So, I mean, he's just one kid I look at that, how the club benefited him so much. I mean, it definitely did.
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So let me ask you, Mike, how, I always wonder about this because they are young kids. They're not high school kids yet. How important is it for you and Shelley to make sure you're not overworking them? Because you don't want kids that age to get hurt when they're like 12 or 13 years old, because if that happens, then chances are it's going to continue to happen. So what do you two do to make sure you're not overworking them?
Well, the high end, like I said earlier, is 40 miles a month, which comes out to about 10 miles a week, thereabouts. So that's not, you know, and that's generally if you make every practice. Most of these kids, I hate to say it, but they're not hitting their 40 mile a month. So they're really under training. So they're not in danger of getting injured as if they were running a lot more miles.
Right.
I would think.
Yep, we definitely take them through a series of stretches and dynamic warm-ups before we start them off. We're always very aware of the temperature outside and making sure that they're equipped with the appropriate clothing and that they have water to drink. We talk to them a lot about staying hydrated throughout the day and just listening to their bodies. And summertime is really tough because, as you know, it's so muggy out there. And we're sure to limit our runs to slow and short when it is warm out.
We also vary on the terrain, whether we're on the street or on the track, or sometimes we'll run the cross country course, which is mostly made up of grass. So that all plays into it.
Right. And let me ask you, how valuable has that river walk been? Because with that river walk, it gives you another place to practice. Say if the high school kids are practicing and there may not be enough room to use the track that day, you have that river walk. So, I mean, how important has that been? Because you're able to I noticed in the summer a lot, especially on Sundays, you're able to have those kids up there running. And I think that river walk was one of the best things to happen to Derby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. It has the mileage written right there. So if a kid isn't running with a watch that will track their distance, then that's really helpful, and they know where to turn around. You can vary your route a little bit, kind of go back and forth, and it's nice because it's safe. You don't have to worry about traffic, and it's definitely beneficial.
Yeah, priceless.
Right. So let me ask you both this. I mean, when it's cross country, you're going to be running distance. You never have to worry about that. But when you're coaching track, obviously you've got sprinters, you've got throwers, you've got distance runners, hurdles, stuff like that. I mean, I've talked to Joe Mazzanti in the past, and he has always been a distance coach more than anything else. So how challenging is it for both of you? Because maybe your coaching is distance, or it could be sprinting. How are you able to make sure you're giving those kids the proper coaching with so many different types of running?
We divide and conquer.
Yeah. I mean, pretty much Shelley takes the throwers, I take the distance runners, and Jen Andrews takes the sprinters. For the most part, I mean, we cross over a lot. Like Shelley has some people that throw and run. She'll take them up to the throwing pit. They'll throw a little bit. Then they'll come down and they'll do some work.
Dog barking.
Now, Shelley, let me ask you. I mean, did you have any experience with throwing before you became a coach, or is this like something that was new to you? Because I mean, it may look easy at times, but really you got to teach them the proper form. Make sure they're doing everything. Was it difficult at first?
Yes and no. I'm going to apologize right now. My dogs are going crazy because I think my son is coming home. I did throw in high school. I certainly wasn't a great thrower. I was an average thrower, but I really enjoy shot put. I enjoy discus. I was asked not to throw a javelin in high school, but that's no worry at the middle school level because you're not allowed to anyway. And it's really helpful to see the high school throwers. They tend to be practicing around the same time that we are. Can you still hear me over my dogs?
Yep, I can hear you fine. Yep, no worries.
And the high school students really, really help our kids, take them under their wing and give them pointers. At this level, we generally don't teach them spins. We keep it pretty basic, and we just work on form and basically teach them the basics of throwing, and hopefully they enjoy it and they stick with it.
Right. So Mike, let me ask you this. There's those days you have to give what's called the hard workout. You have to see what you got. I know there's like those 9 half-mile repeats that have been done in the past. So let me ask you, what kind of workout do you give the distance runners when you have them going hard for that particular day?
Well, it depends on whether it's the beginning of their training cycle or the end. Like I'll start them usually at 4 times 400 with a 2 to 3 minute break. Yeah. And then towards the middle of the season, we'll build them up maybe, and you're a track man, so you can relate to that. We build them up maybe to 6 times 800. And then as we get closer to the States, we cut down the distance and increase the speed. So, drop them down to a series of 4 times 4, and then just blast them with a bunch of 200s and then some 100s, just to get them when we come close to the States, we really want them doing more faster things than running those 3 and 4 mile runs.
Right. And I mean, Mike, how important are those workouts? Because I mean, really, you're not going to be able to go half speed at a meet. So you really have to prepare them for what a meet is going to be like. So how important is that for any kid who's a runner?
Well, very, very much so. We do time trials. This last season, we even had Nick had set us up with a practice track meet because we had a lot of new kids that, we didn't want their first track meet to be their first track meet. So we, at the high school, set up this practice track meet where they got to run through some of the events. It's important to get them accustomed to what they're going to do. I mean, whether you're, somebody like Cassie Silkoff, who's been running for 1 million years, or somebody like Lazare, who's been running for 1 year, everybody's nervous. You remember it when you ran track. I remember when I ran, when you're at the race you're nervous. Some kids are nervous to a different level, but like the new kids we had run. What was the race we just ran, Shell? The
5K.
The 5K 4th of July. We had some kids. It was their very first race, and they're looking around. They're saying, "Man, I'm nervous." So don't worry. Everybody's nervous.
Yeah.
But the more that we focus on the training, the more their confidence is built up. But as far as nervousness, it'll always be there.
Right, exactly. So, Shelley, talk to me a little bit about the weight throwers. Who are some of the kids that you worked with this past spring, and talk to me a little bit about their development?
Yeah, so we had a lot of new kids trying it out this year, and we didn't have anyone who made states this year, and that's okay. They certainly did their best, and what I think is really important is that a handful of them do want to continue when they get to high school, and they're excited about it. So we had a young lady, Angelise, who did move, and she was pretty pumped. She enjoyed both shot put and discus. We have Rima, we have Joe. Let's see who else. We have Horatio. He's really into it, and he likes to run too. He works really, really hard. He's been even running with us over the summer. He likes sprinting and he likes throwing. So all of the kids who were out there were super dedicated and just kept trying.
And I'm sure you saw so much improvement from the first day of practice till the final meet, just like how well they progressed.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if you've ever held a shot put, but it's a pretty awkward sensation. And these kids who maybe did play baseball before, or it's just a different way of throwing. You know, you're pushing it off your neck, and you can't really use your wrist when you've got 8 pounds in your hand. So.
And let me ask you, Shelley, do you have them in the weight room at all? Because, I mean, obviously, if you're throwing the shot put, you know, jab, disc, it doesn't hurt to have some strength. I mean, it doesn't hurt to bulk up a little bit. So, I mean, do you have these kids in the weight room at times?
We did try to. There was a limited number of days that I could work with them on throwing this season. So I felt that it would be more important for their time with me to really just work on how they should be throwing and, you know, the basics of throwing, and did encourage them if they had any of their own free time where they could do some workouts or push-ups to do some of those things on their own. But I just really wanted them to get the basics of the movements down and understand what they were doing when they were in the throwing circle.
Right. And Mike, talk to me a little bit about some of the distance runners you had. I mean, did you have kids that competed in the 1600, 800, the 2 mile? I mean, talk about that a little bit.
Well, the furthest we go in middle school is the mile, or the 1600.
Mile. Okay. Yeah.
We had a couple of veterans that carried over from Bradley, both Sophia Rudis and Sean Keogh did well in those events. But they've been running probably about 4th, 5th grade. And then we had some new guys come out. Jaden Cooper, I don't know if you know him, baseball player. Right. He did well. Christian Castellini, who's been running since 6th grade, very talented runner. He did well. Right. Quincy Carter, who's a sprinter / football player, did really well. Almost, I mean, locally, he owned the 200. Right. He owned the 200 locally. He's going to probably have a very good football season and then move on to track at the high school. Right.
And now, did you have any long jump runners or middle jump or any of that stuff? Did anybody participate in that?
We had one long jumper, Cheyenne Little. And I think she wound up finishing 13th in Connecticut.
Wow.
So the first 6 make all state. So she was a little, but then again, she's coming back next year as an 8th grader, so she'll have another shot.
Right. And Shelley, I mentioned earlier about how important it is that it teaches these kids commitment, dedication, discipline, and being responsible, not only on the track, but in school as well, and everything else they do. So, I mean, how have you seen that, like, in a lot of maturity in these kids since they started running this past year? And do you see like that they're taking this very seriously?
I have seen some gains, excuse me. I would say that COVID set us back a little bit. Like, it was hard for us to even get some numbers. So it was harder to get kids to join running or join track and field. and they're learning how to be leaders. They're learning how to take the direction and be good listeners, put the phones away and really pay attention. When you're up at the throwing circle and you've got some high schoolers up there too, and you've got shot on one side, javelin in the middle, and discus on the other side, you really need to be aware of your surroundings. So I would say that, yes, they definitely demonstrated maturity as they in good safety practices, I would say, as they get into the season.
Right. Now, I know the high school obviously had indoor track. Did the middle school have indoor track as well?
No, we experimented with it about maybe 4 or 5 years ago, going to some of these developmental meets with the running club. But the feedback was more or less mixed reviews. So I said, moving forward with an indoor track program, middle school would be probably not worth it. And then again, I don't think there's any other middle school that has an indoor program. So,
right.
We went to about 3, 4 developmental meets, and the kids were like, it's okay. Where when we talked about starting up an outdoor track team, a lot of these kids were like, well, now I can do it because you have options other than running just distance.
Right. So roughly, I'm not sure if you have the exact number. How many meets were the middle school kids able to run this past spring?
Probably in track, probably 6.
Yeah, I think so.
Probably 6. And then we had the states. So 7.
Right. Now, were you able to have a home meet at all? I mean, they got that beautiful track.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The schools love coming to us. Cause I mean, Nick, has all the state of the art equipment, and they're always like, hey, great. We got our times immediately. It's accurate, well organized. So yeah, I mean, we did a couple of home meets, and it's very good.
And I really think having a beautiful facility like that will get more kids to come out, because I mean, you got that great track to run on. I mean, the old Derby track, no offense to it, but it was tough to run on. This one is beautiful, and I just think you're going to see more interest. Like Shelley said, COVID really hurt the numbers, but I think you're going to see a big bump in numbers come the fall. Would you agree?
I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so too. I think we just have to keep talking it up and reaching out to these kids and making sure that our kids are reaching out to the other kids and letting them know what it's all about, and have them come out and give it a try, and they just might fall in love with it.
Right. And Mike, I think you trained her for a little bit, one of your former runners. She's done very well in college, and that's Kylie Rodriguez. Just talk about her a little bit, because I mean, she was a tremendous high school runner, and she's really carried it over in college as well.
Well, let me tell you. So first off, she started with us when she was in 7th grade. For whatever reason, she didn't come out in 6th grade. But she came up to me and she asked some questions, and we did a little bit of running, and she's one of these girls. She showed up for her first meet in a pair of cutoff jeans. She had some Converse, and she had like a white T-shirt hanging out of her back pocket. And she came in somewhere in the middle of the pack in her first race. Yeah. Well, then we fast forward a year later after going through the running club. And then again, we had no track at that time. And she had knocked off somewhere around 8 or 9 minutes off 1.7 mile course. And you can appreciate, that short a distance to knock 8 or 9 minutes off is fantastic.
Right.
And so she came down from the 18s to around 10:40 and was one of our top girls. But she was someone that you could almost always depend on to be at practice. And I think she missed something like 3 practices all summer, which is, we don't have that often. And whenever she wasn't going to be at practice, I would get a phone call. I would get a text from mom. I mean, it was no surprise when she wouldn't be there.
Right. And Shelley, one of the things that I think it shows that this running club, the middle school, what you guys have done for so many years, is the successes that you never see, hardly ever anyway, any of these kids drop out of doing this or quit on it. They all stay with it from the time they're in 6th grade till they graduate high school. I mean, look at the numbers. I mean, when I was in high school, if you told me 25 years later, Derby track, Derby cross country was going to win state titles, I would have thought you were crazy. But I mean, these kids continue to commit to this. They've never given up on it. I mean, they want to be the best they could be. I mean, you know, I mentioned Cassie earlier. I think Cassie, she could have the greatest race. And if it's not first place or she doesn't think she ran to her standards, she's mad and she lets it bother her for a while. And that just shows like the type of coaching you've given kids like her, because they want to be the very best they could be.
Yeah, they really do stick with it. And I think they're really dedicated to improving their own performances, and they're dedicated to their coaches in the middle school and in the high school. I mean, they really look forward to working with Nick and Muzz and with Matt and throwing. So these kids definitely just want to get better and better. And they see that the older kids have done so well. And I think that makes them want to also, you know, go to states and win the medals and go to nationals. So they set great examples for the younger kids.
I mean, the prestige, you know, the prestige and the exposure these kids are getting is phenomenal.
Yeah, it really is. And I mean, this past, like I was talking to Shelley off air, the kids who were able to compete in nationals in Oregon. I mean, it had to be a little stressful with the fundraising because that was tough at times. But once these kids got there, I mean, you saw that 4x4 team almost won. I think they finished second. Everybody who competed did so well that, I mean, it's something that these kids will experience for the rest, that they'll take with them the rest of their lives, having that experience. You know, so, I mean, you can't beat that right there. Mike, let me ask you, going forward, I mean, what do you see the middle school program continuing to grow? And do you think as time goes on, there'll be 6 meets is a lot in middle school anyway, but do you see it expanding even more as time goes on?
As far as the numbers, I hope so. As far as the meets for track, 6 meets is good. For cross country, I'd like to see more. We usually do 9, 10 contests. And, you know, more than that, because some of them are dual meets or either invitationals where we have 20 schools there. Right.
One of the things, Shelley, that I really think has helped the running club as well is the booster club that they started a few years back, because now you have parents helping out, they're involved, and some of this stuff isn't always, you know, it's not always easy. Like Oregon, they had to fundraise, stuff like that. So by having a good booster club, stuff like that, it just gets everybody involved in it. Again, it's another thing that teaches the kids about commitment, because they'll be out there sometimes canning and trying to do whatever they can to raise money for better equipment, stuff like that. So, I mean, I think that booster club has been a big success as well.
Yeah.
I would agree. And it's nice because sometimes the parents and the kids might not even know too much about the booster program. And then when they get involved and they see it and they learn, you know, you have to educate them so they know what they're raising funds for, and they recognize that though they might not, you know, benefit immediately, in the future, we might need those funds to go to nationals or to join another competition. So it is a great way for them to get involved. And like I said, you just have to educate the kids and educate the families on what we're doing and how they can be involved. And they're always happy to do it.
Right. Mike, let me ask you, for a parent who might be having a child that going into 6th grade, even 7th or 8th, who's never ran before, when will the first like official workout begin for summer workouts going into the fall?
Well, the first cross country officially starts September 6th for us.
Right.
With the running club, we're working out right now, 3 days a week.
Right. And are most of them at the Riverwalk? Is that where the kids meet normally?
Actually, most of them aren't here. They're at least half of them are on vacation.
Right. So, I mean, right away you're getting started. You're getting these kids prepared for the season. So I got to believe that you're going to see, like I said, the numbers continue to rise. And I really do thank you both, because I think what you're doing is just as important as what's happening with the high school level, because without a strong feeder program, these state championships don't happen. And I really applaud the job and hard work that the two of you do. And I really do appreciate you coming on for a few minutes today.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. So, folks, you just heard from them. They are doing a great job with this run-in program. It's a great feeder program, and it gives these kids 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and even kids younger than that can do the summer workouts. They can work out with the team. So really, if your child is looking to try something new, I would recommend doing this, because they really do a great job. And, get out there, and if your kids want to run, give them that opportunity. For In the Spotlight, that was Shelley Sheridan and Mike Gozzo. I'm Mike Kenichi saying good night, everyone.